This video is going to show you how to solve quadratic functions algebraically using the quadratic formula. This is the quadratic formula. I will never ask you to memorize it. What I want you to know is how to use it. So when we're given a quadratic equation like this, we're going to make sure it's in standard form. Standard form is when you have your x squared term, then the term with the x, and then your constant, which we're going to call c, which is the number without an x, and it's set equal to 0. So that's how you know it's standard form. They need to be equal to 0. Once you make sure your equation looks like that, you're going to name the a, b, and c. So the a is the number in front of the x, the b is the number in front of the x, sorry, the a is in front of the x squared, and c is the number that doesn't have an x. So I'm going to write a equals, b equals, and c equals. So my a is the number in front of the x squared. There's no number there, so that means it's 1. B is the number in front of the x, so in this case it's 2. And c is the number without an x, so that's 3. Please remember that a, b, and c are just numbers, so I don't want the x's. The next thing we're going to do is sub these numbers into the quadratic formula. So you're going to write it exactly like this, but where you see a b, you're going to put your number. Where you see a, you're going to put your a. So it's going to look like this. I'm just going to write it right here. X equals the opposite. So this can be negative or means opposite of. The opposite of b, so my b is 2, plus and minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of that is in the radical, and we're going to divide it. We're going to divide all of this by 2 times a, and my a was 1. So once you write all of that, you are going to simplify it further. So what that's going to look like, and I'm just going to move my paper up so you can see, is I'm going to rewrite. I'm going to write x equals the opposite of 2. Well, the opposite of 2 is negative 2. Plus and minus, and then I'm going to simplify what's under the radical. So I'm going to put just this in my calculator, not the square root sign. So I'm going to type in parentheses 2 squared minus 4 parentheses 1 parentheses 3. So it's exactly what's in my pink circle. And I'm going to hit enter, and I get -8. So I'm going to write -8 in the radical, and that's all over 2 times 1, so that's 2. So again, the way I got the -8 was I typed what's circled in pink in my calculator, and it gave me -8. So I'm going to keep simplifying this as much as I can. So what that means is I'm going to write x equals -2 plus and minus. And now I'm going to simplify this radical because we know we cannot have a negative in the radical. So I'm going to pull out that -1, and I'm going to look on my chart or my bookmark, and I'm going to see that the largest perfect square that can go into 8 is 4. And when I divide 8 by 4, I'm left with 2. So this is me breaking up that radical like you did on the previous sheets. And all of this is going to be over 2. We're going to simplify this a little bit more. So we have x equals -2 plus and minus. The square root of -1 is I. The square root of 4 is 2. And this 2 is going to just stay in the radical. And it's all over 2. Now, you can leave it like this, or you can reduce the fraction. If I wanted to reduce the fraction, what I would notice is that I can divide all of these terms by 2 just to make the equation as simplified as possible. And when I do that, I would end up with -2 divided by 2 is -1, plus and minus 1i radical 2. So we don't divide that 2 by 2. And 2 divided by 2 is 1, which is really the same as this. So that is an introduction to how you would use the quadratic formula to solve this problem.